So it is a beautifully sunny Thursday morning and it is October, but we are thinking about Christmas. And you might spot that in the team today. We have tried our best to dig out some Christmassy jumpers. You might see some earrings, some headwear. You might see some ornaments on shelves behind us. And Rachel has even got a stocking out for you as we talk about Christmas with our toddler groups. But before we get into that, we're just going to introduce ourselves, and we'd love you to introduce yourself in the chat. If you want to say who you are and where you are, it gives us a really good idea of where our reach is this morning. So if you are a regular member of our Talking Toddlers family, you will know me, but if you're not, you won't. So my name is Sammy. I work for Hope Together. We support churches and Christians to reach everyone everywhere with the good news about Jesus. And my particular focus for Hope is local communities. In a previous life, I ran a toddler group for 12 years and I was a teacher. So I'm delighted to be with you here this morning. Becky, who works with me at Hope, is behind the scenes. You won't see her on screen, but you'll see the fruits of all her labours. She's our tech queen this morning. So thank you, Becky. And I'm going to hand over to Rachel, who's going to introduce herself and a new member of the team.
Indeed. Morning all, lovely to be with you, and thank you again for putting time aside to come and join us, whether you are live with us now or watching this on record. As Sammy said, my name is Rachel Heffer. I serve at the Evangelical Alliance. My role is head of mission. I'm delighted to have dug out my Christmas jumper in October. I went to the depths, and who knows what you find in a loft. I found a nice finger puppet. I also found a stocking, so that's going to get us all festive, certainly in my neck of the woods anyway today. But really delighted to be with you as we look ahead for these next couple of months and all that you will be able to do and achieve through your toddler groups in just sharing the good news of the Christmas story and beyond with those within your context. But as Sammy said, I would love to introduce you to a new wonderful...
Are you able to forward me the name badges?
And that is...
No, that's absolutely fine.
And Cara has started working with us at the EA as Mission and Comms Coordinator. So just wanted to flag her up to you because as the EA, we love cheering on and championing the UK church, but also wonderful ministry leaders, toddler group leaders, and all those working with toddlers, children, youth, just like yourself. But even more important than all of that, Cara, your story is particularly poignant to today because Cara, whilst you look incredibly young, is a mum of 5, would you believe, friends? And Cara, you came to faith through a toddler group, didn't you? So tell us, just say hello to our friends here. And would you tell us, what was it? I'd love to know. What was it about that toddler group context that drew you closer to Jesus? Because that really helped frame and remind us and encourage us again, right from the outset, why we do what we do. So yeah, tell us a line or two about you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's brilliant to be here. As Rachel says, I'm Cara. I'm the mission coordinator. I am based in Glasgow. And as Rachel says, yes, I did come to faith through a toddler group. So this is very close to my heart. Delighted to be part of this event. And for me, going to a toddler group was my first real contact with a church. Biggest thing for me was just the warm welcome, was just the difference in the people that I met there. And by meeting them and by spending time with them, I wanted to know more about church. I wanted to know more about the place I was coming to for toddlers. And so I started coming to church as part of that. And well, the rest is history. I now work for EA. And very quickly after attending that toddler group, I began my pathway to faith and gave my life to Jesus.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Cara, for sharing. Cara has more of that story to tell. If you're interested, we'll be writing it up very soon and pushing it out through the EA. But isn't that a helpful reminder, I hope, for all of us, certainly for me as well, to say, this is why we're here. This is why we do what we do. Cara, thanks for sharing your story. Let's believe that for so many that we interact with, actually, they too will have that encounter with people, the warmth of welcome, but also go on to encounter Jesus. So thank you, Cara. Sammy, back to you.
So thank you for being with us this morning. We are going to help you take your toddlers and young families on a journey through Christmas. Now, I wonder how that thought makes you feel. God made us all uniquely different, didn't he? I know I'm an advanced planner, so I will confess, I start my Christmas shopping early in the summer. I've got lots of godchildren, lots of nieces and nephews who also have birthdays in the autumn. So it gets really expensive unless I spread it out. So I have started my Christmas shopping. I know that Rachel is going to be sunning herself on a half-term holiday next week, and she'll be putting things into her shopping basket, okay, while she's by the side of the pool. So some of us like to be organised. Some of us are fine leaving things a little bit later on, okay, maybe into November and December. But I hope you feel welcome, whether you're an advanced planner or a bit more lastminute.com. So Becky, who's doing the tech, this time last year, she'd bought a chocolate orange. This year, she's not done anything yet, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And so if you are an advanced planner and you've got your plans about Christmas, that's great, because we'd love to hear them this morning. And you can share your ideas with those that know it's coming but haven't quite made a plan yet. But we're talking about Christmas because we know it's a massive opportunity. It comes around every year, and you know, it's still part of our popular culture. It's a kind of strong part of cultural Christianity, even if fewer and fewer people would actually call themselves Christians when the surveys come out. And I wonder how you feel about Christmas in your toddler group. I know when I was leading a toddler group, there was quite a bit of pressure to kind of do something different every year. We had a few things that we always did that families look forward to, but I felt pressure to kind of repackage it and find a new lens and a new way in every year. We hope to take some of that pressure off you this morning by resourcing you with some of our wonderful speakers. But before I introduce them to you, Rachel is going to remind us of some of the surveys and stats that tell us why you are some of the most important people involved in God's mission and his church, and how that relates to Christmas. So Rachel, over to you.
Thanks so much, Sammy. So some of you who have been on this toddler group journey with us over the last almost 5 years now will remember that back in May 2020, just as the pandemic hit, which was somewhat crazy, we launched our Talking Toddlers research. And that's been really informative, hopefully for some of you who've joined us as part of that journey. For many of you who might be new to, with us for the first time today, you are so welcome. But I'd love to just remind you of some of those headlines again, which hopefully just open up and frame our conversation today, but also remind us once again what the importance of these toddler groups and ministries are. So let me take you through some of those headlines. Whether you've heard it for the first time, many times before, hopefully they will encourage and inspire you. So we found by doing this national piece of research that this stat, which always astounds me, we found this, that 74% of parents, this is all families, not just those in the church, but 74% of all families with children under the age of 5 said that they had contact with a church through children's activities, many of those being a toddler group. Now, I don't know about you, but I find that astounding. And I, through my work at the EA, along with Cara and others, we love engaging week in, week out with church leaders. And I so often remind them that of this statistic to say toddler groups, messy church and so on as well, are some of the biggest, if not the biggest mission field in the church. And so, of course, as church leaders, we really want to see them flourish, profiled, resourced, encouraged and prayed for. So in our wider context, 74% of people have contact with a toddler group like yours. We also went on to learn that 86% of those families who come along to those groups do come regularly because of some of the reasons that they want that warmth of welcome, which Cara mentioned earlier. They want the hot cup of coffee, they want their children to be known, and there's this draw to a sense of a place, albeit for some in a church building, which where we know the threshold might be quite high for them to come into, but they come because they know there's going to be something of meaning, of moral value and of substance. So 86% say that they will come and join us regularly. How encouraging is that? Now, the next stat, again, is one of my personal favourites, because it tells us this, that 55% of parents of under 5s who are non-Christians say that where a toddler group like yours or like the church that I go to in Ely in Cambridgeshire, where there is that Christian distinctiveness, then they said that their own faith has been challenged or changed as a result of being in that context. I think that's hugely exciting, but also deeply challenging, isn't it? That where we actually allow ourselves to maybe not just sing the wheels on the bus, but to actually look at Bible-based action songs or Bible stories, actually in that place, as much as we speak to the toddlers and our young children, we know that the ears in the room also take that in, and people's own faith has been challenged as a result. The next slide shows us that 40% of practicing Christians that we also found through what I'll come on to in a moment in our Talking Jesus research told us that 40% came to faith under the age of 5. Again, what a phenomenal stat that actually even at that young age, and I know for myself, I became a Christian at the age of 7, so not that much older than 5, quite simply in a church-based holiday club. Because I just knew that Jesus was with me. He was my best friend. The simplicity of how our young children can come to faith at such a young age, again, should encourage us. And lastly, on our Talking Toddlers research, this should actually really encourage us, particularly as we look at Christmas, because we found this, that out of those that we surveyed, 27% of them said, even if they didn't go to church in that more sort of Sunday context or nativity or whatever, if they didn't go every week, 27% said that they would go to an annual festival. And of course, what bigger annual festival than Christmas, maybe Easter as well. But Christmas is probably the time, isn't it, that your friends and mine would accept that easy invite to come into your church context. So hopefully, again, that just informs us, encourages us, reassures us that actually this is why we do what we do. I'm going to just move us on really quickly to a few more stats and figures, if that's okay, within our Talking Jesus research, because again, this helps to reiterate some of the reasons as to why we plough in our time and energy into these contexts. So Talking Jesus research, again, reminds us that on the next slide, it shows us that actually growing up in a Christian family was of pivotal importance when we asked over 4,000 people, just about 1,000 of them practicing Christians, we asked this, and 34% said growing up in a Christian family was a significant influencer to them coming to faith. And you can see the other stats there around the Bible, about being in church, going to services and so on. But it shows that as churches, and for church leaders, we really want them to encourage that whole family discipleship, but also the points of welcome that we know of as well. The next slide from Talking Jesus also tells us, once again, that it points to this fact of how many practicing Christians, by far and away the majority, would say that they come to faith at a young age. As you can see, the majority well under the age of 18. 33% of people said that actually they recognise, they would say that they came to faith from birth. Again, for many of us as practicing Christians, we'd say therein lies a good discipleship conversation as to what people believe about coming to a point of decision. But doesn't it show that, again, investing in the young is a really formative age and stage when people come to faith? Just a couple more slides for you. And again, this points to how important our toddler group context can be. When we asked across the UK what was the percentage of non-Christians who would say that they knew a practicing Christian, we found it was this: 53% of people said they know a practicing Christian. Now, herein lies a bit of an alert, friends, because going back to our original 2015 research, this was actually 68%. So what it informs us is there has actually been a drop-off. So the encouragement to us is we need to make ourselves known that actually we are Christians, because as Cara found, I'm sure, for many of us as well, actually in the spaces of toddler groups, when we're relaxed, albeit chasing children around, when we're with people who are warm and caring, actually we might wish to speak about the real, raw, gritty trauma, pain, anxiety, but also the good things of life. And if people know we're a Christian, then actually they may just want to speak to us. And just lastly, as it comes up here on your screens, you can see when we ask the question, what's the biggest thing, the biggest question that is resonating with you, our non-Christian friends at this point in time? Talking Jesus research told us this, that the biggest question that people are asking is, will everything be okay? We know, don't we? So we've been through many life events, a global pandemic, the death of a queen, the threat of war, the ongoing threat of war, cost of living crisis, mental health, well-being, anxiety, all of these concerns. Why does it surprise us maybe that those who come into our toddler group context those of us in the Christian, in our churches as well, let's not pretend that we're exempt from this, but so many people are looking to that answers to that question, will everything be okay? And in the midst of that, I don't know what your answer would be. Mine would probably be, no, this side of heaven, life is pretty broken. But what we have an amazing opportunity, friends, don't we, is to share light and truth and hope. And that's something of the passion that we have for the people that we serve, but moreover, knowing that God is a steadfast God, the rock of ages, in whom they can depend as much as we can as well. So hopefully, just going back over some of that, it goes to both encourage you, hopefully inform you, but to really remind us why we do what we do, why we plough in a lot of energy and preparation and thinking ahead, so that actually, against people reeling sometimes of saying, will everything be okay? That actually, even in our very important toddler group context, they will come to know something of Jesus and have a sense of an encounter with him. So Sammy, let me hand back to you in the framing of all of that at the start of our time together.
Thank you, Rachel. So the Talking Toddlers research says that our biggest window of opportunity is childhood, and that's 74%, it's young families. And Talking Jesus says actually relationships are powerful and work when we've got Christians talking to their non-Christian friends. So we think that comes together to create a massive window of opportunity in the safe, welcoming spaces that are our toddler groups. And we want to look into those spaces today and look at Christmas. And to do that, just so you know what we've got coming up, we have got Joy and Sophie, who are going to talk to us about a new toddler group project called Perfect Peace and what that might look like in a Christmas context. We have got Mark, who is a church leader from Portishead near Bristol, and he leads his toddler group. And he's going to share his context and some of his Christmas ideas and resources with us. We've got a couple of adverts. So we've got Steph Openshaw. She is back with us for the second year running, sharing yet another Christmas book. Who can it be? A Christmas Wait and See. And we've got Lizzie Clark from Faith in Kids, who will give us 5 minutes on their brilliant Come Along Christmas resource. We've also, and if you've been coming to these webinars for quite a long time, you will remember Sarah Holmes, Dr. Sarah Holmes, who was at Liverpool Hope University and is now with CYM. She has got a little bit of a questionnaire that she'd value your input on around the question of godly play. So that's what's coming up this morning. But you are our experts, okay? We're a hive mind here. What we love to see is your resources and suggestions in the chat. There will be time later on for a Q&A, so if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. We'll pick them up towards the end. But if you have any resources, ideas, suggestions, things that you know work, then bless everybody else in this community by sharing them in the chat too. And, we'll anonymise things, but we will send resource ideas out with the email and with the recording link. So let's pray before we dive into all of that. Father God, thank you that you long to build your kingdom amongst us. And thank you that you use us, that we get to join in with what you are doing. And Father God, our heart is to join in with what you're doing amongst our very young families this Christmas time. So would you be with us this morning as we talk, as we listen, as we share ideas? Would you encourage us, inspire us, and equip us, whether we've gone early and feel ready or whether we feel a little bit behind? Father God, take us on a journey through Christmas this morning as we seek to prepare resources that will reach some of the youngest people that you long to welcome into your kingdom. Amen.
Love to say from the outset, please do, one of you or a few of you from your groups, if you can put any even bullet points in the chat as to what you do or what you've tried and tested, what you're thinking of, then we will be able to collate those even as bullet point ideas to send out that just might trigger thoughts and ideas for others as well. So please do that. In our group, we were hearing about what, again, just reiterating what an amazing opportunity Christmas to build on the relationships. And one of the members of our Zoom room said, again, when they know us and they trust us and they like us, actually that invite into something more to do with Christmas, whether that's in the toddler group context, or we talked about pop-up nativities, again, not necessarily allocating roles, but just in the spur of the moment on the day, create the nativities. One of the members of my Zoom room talked about a Christmas breakfast, where they go all out to particularly treat and show value on the parents and the carers who are there. I love that idea of, the croissants and coffee, very important. We talked of a nativity trail. There was Christmas wreath making, and one person said that they'd used Steph's book last year, cut up into 5 parts so that people could sing along, and you'll be hearing more from Steph a little bit later. One thing that I thought was gold that came out of our room as well was that somebody said that they'd also been advised to always have the next invite lined up. So if somebody comes to your crib service, what might be the follow-up? What could they come and join you for as well? And the sense of an opportunity to the wider community. We heard too about one person who said that they open up their church for the local preschools to come in and be part of a candle prayer moment and nativity in that context as well. And it created a moment of awe and wonder. So isn't it amazing? All of these activities and so on can actually just be places where people feel welcome, they feel valued, but they might actually encounter something of Jesus or the Holy Spirit, even in that moment of being dressed up as a donkey, or who knows what it might be. So thank you for sharing your ideas. Hopefully you gleaned some encouragement from friends in your Zoom room as well. As I move us on, I'm really delighted to welcome our next 2 guests. We've got Sophie Cowan, who's with us, and Joy French as well. Now, the story goes, the reason that they're here today is that earlier this year, Sophie, you and I met, didn't we, down in Ipswich, which is where you're part of the diocese there. And I was speaking at a conference where right at the end of that conference day or morning that we had together, we got chatting very briefly, didn't we? And I was just captivated by speaking to Sophie about this concept of something called perfect peace, which I'm going to leave them in just a moment to express to you. But even in that early conversation that we had, there was something of this idea, a concept, which was working itself out, which has become a bigger project, which I said, Sophie, you must come and join us. And since then, Joy has joined as a director of this project. So Sophie, Joy, welcome. We are absolutely thrilled to have you with us. And my hope and prayer is that from you sharing something of what you've been doing, that others might be able to just be, the cogs will be ticking over and they'll think, how could that potentially work out? Maybe with a Christmas theme, maybe beyond, but in their concept as well. So let me hand over to both of you with our thanks for joining us. Tell us about Perfect Peace. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I'm hopeful that there's going to be a slide coming up. Maybe.
I think so.
Let's hope. If not, no worries.
There you go.
Will everything be okay? Yes, everything will be okay because God is amazing, but that's not my slide. There we go. Here we are. So I'm Sophie. I am a vicar in Ipswich, but I'm from Corby in Northamptonshire. I'm from a council estate, although I notice there are people here from all over the world. So that's social housing, or if you're in Scotland, it's schemes. And what that means for me is that my ministry comes out of that place, and my call, personal call from God, is really rooted in the estate. And when the opportunity came to produce a project for the Estates Evangelism Task Group, they had some innovation funding, and they were putting it out to all different people across the country. And I really wanted to share something of this concept of perfect peace. I've been doing it in after school clubs, but I was really aware, and my Archdeacon, who's now the Bishop of Southampton, Rhiannon, was also really aware that 0 to 5s are a kind of key area for the church, and there's lots that could be done for 0 to 5s in this kind of area of perfect peace. So if I have the next slide, it lands on this verse from Isaiah 26, verse 3. So you will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. And this is my kind of heart for perfect peace, is that we will be able to share something of God's provision of peace. The Hebrew shalom, shalom, peace, peace, over people like myself who have had upbringings which have lacked financially, not in love maybe, but lacked financially, and that has implications for how they experience God's peace, how they experience God's love, and what it means to be able to share that. We know that the 0 to 5s, in terms of what the NHS statistics look like, the kind of impact of health and well-being in that age is crucial. And so anything we can do in our toddler groups to support healthy upbringings, to support people to be able to give their children everything that they need, is amazing. And we're doing that, and you are all doing that. And I heard that in the groups too, that there's so much going on, so much on offer through the church's provision. And the question for me was really to make sure that we were linking that with the gospel, and to make sure that we are offering people something more than the amazing provisions we offer, but something that they can take and hold. And God's perfect peace is where I landed when I was pitching this to the Estates Evangelism Task Group. So if we have the next slide. So the task group provided a significant amount of funding to be able to get this project off the ground, and what their intention is to be able to provide something from the estates, some learning, some provision, to reach not just estates but across the whole church, and the Church of England has been funding this, but also as far and wide as possible. It means that we'd be able to develop, Joy will tell you in more detail in a minute, ways to work with young families and their children to kind of improve that intergenerational mental health outcomes, which by virtue of the link with physical health all kind of impact together. One thing to really think about in that way, in that kind of setting of mental health, is the trauma. I know from personal experience that when you grow up without the things that you need, your basic needs being met, there is a trauma in that, and it gets passed down. And how we can in our churches, in our TOTS groups, try to break those chains, as we hear Jesus talking about in Isaiah. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. I'm anointed to bring good news to the poor, to release the oppressed. This is the heart of what perfect peace is. So if we have the next slide, and I'll tell you a bit more about what that looks like in practice. Next slide, if that's okay. Thank you. No, back one, sorry. And again, and again. Back one more, I think. Right at the bottom there. Okay, there we go. We're developing this program, A Perfect Peace, which will be a resource for you all, and hope you get the opportunity to see it soon, which is based on 3 principles: relaxation, reflection, and reconnection. We know that when people take time to connect with God, God works. We're not the secret ingredient to this. God is the one who moves. And so what we've been doing in my after school clubs and in our TOTS group is we've been taking a time of relaxation at the end of the sessions, where they get out the bean bags and they look up to the ceiling. We put sparkly lights on the ceiling, and they breathe and they relax, and they do kind of the meditative kind of postures that will let their body just kind of ease into the floor, and to be really aware of God's presence. And then we reflect on whatever the Bible story has been for that day, and we take that time to reconnect with one another and with God. And it's beautiful. And what I've seen through practicing in the setting is that it's just a powerful thing to do, to just really let people engage with God and make it possible for those 0 to 5s to show us how to really trust God. And the parents lay down on the floor, and the carers lay down on the floor too. We're all kind of there waiting on God. And I think particularly when we're thinking about Christmas, which Joy will speak about a bit more, I know Christmas is a very, very difficult time when you don't have enough money. It can be enough time. It can be a difficult time anyway for people for various reasons, for grief, and all kinds of things come up at Christmas, don't they? But particularly when you're struggling and you don't have enough to give your children. Actually, when the church offers a space to connect with God, who gives us everything, who provides all that we need, and to be part of a journey of offering what people really need is what you're doing in TOTS groups. And Perfect Peace just is something that will be able to hopefully encourage that and to give you something slightly fresh and new to be able to offer. So I'm going to hand over to Joy, who'll give more details.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sophie. So where I fit into all of this is that Sophie is super busy running a parish, and the project needed somebody to come in and take a lead in developing the project and getting it up and running. And that's where I came in. I was so passionate about seeing this role advertised because for years and years and years, I've been longing to see the church enter into the space really bravely of early intervention and children and families' mental health. My passion for that came from being a child who experienced early trauma myself, and from then working with children and families right through my career as a foster carer, in schools, as a trainee child psychotherapist several years ago, and then most recently as a vicar. And for me, an understanding of who Jesus is, an understanding of what the gospel is and what the gospel does is really rooted in good mental health and how that can look and feel. Sophie and I were talking yesterday about our kind of underpinning values, that we want Perfect Peace to be a project that does no harm. We want Perfect Peace to actually do good for people, and for people to leave our groups with better resources than they came in with. So if we can have the next slide, what we're going to be doing in Ipswich, first of all, is we're going to be, the one after would be great, we're going to be piloting groups from January. So we're going to be piloting groups with estate churches in Ipswich first and foremost, and we're rooting the programme that we're developing in Psalm 139. So all the different bits that we do will be drawn back to these fundamental ideas. You are known, you are held, you are wonderfully made, and you have a purpose. And within those 4 themes, we're going to be able to bring together ideas from mental health. So under you are known, we'll be able to think about relationships. We'll be able to think about how we're held in families. Under you are wonderfully made, we'll think about the fact that we have bodies, that we grow. Under you have a purpose, we'll be thinking about ideas like there are things that you can do. You have special skills and abilities. And within that, we want to speak to parents and to children about some core concepts within mental health that we think are absolutely relevant for a life of faith as well. So the idea of regulation. Yesterday, I was with one of my friends who is an adoptive parent, and he was sharing that he'd recently been with his adult daughter. His adult daughter experienced lots and lots of trauma in her early childhood, and he'd observed her with her own children and had observed that she didn't really talk to her children a great deal. She didn't really look at her children a great deal. She found some of those fundamental interactions that many of us might take for granted as being hardwired into how we relate to children. Those resources weren't there. And we know that when we're connecting with families who've come from trauma, who've experienced difficulties, where they're raising kids without some of that resourcing being hardwired into them, they've got a tough challenge. And so part of what we want to do as people sharing the love of Jesus is resource this generation of parents with some really great stuff that is going to be facilitating their journey as a parent all the way through. So Becky, you're doing an amazing job. If we can have the next slide, that would be amazing. I do not envy Becky this job. Fabulous. So, and the next one as well. So that just gives us a little bit more of an understanding of what those themes are going to be. And then if we can go on to the next one. So thinking about what we might do in a Perfect Peace session at Christmas. And I am just writing loads of Perfect Peace sessions at the moment. So this is relevant. Let me just get my visual aid. We don't have children who have dolls anymore, so I had to go to my next door neighbour who has daughters. This is possibly the scariest doll I've ever seen, okay? But one of the things we're going to do in our Perfect Peace sessions is we're going to be really hands-on. Our commitment to leaders of toddler groups, so people like yourselves, is that we don't want it to take any longer than 5-10 minutes for you to plan a session. So we're going to give you the resources that you will need in terms of session plans, stories, songs, rhymes, prayers, resources for relaxation, questions and prompts for reflection and reconnection. But thinking particularly about Christmas, we would want something like all our toddlers during our activity time to have a doll of their own. And really what we would be doing here would be something that is supporting both toddlers to experience and think about the story of Jesus being born, and parents who may not have some of this fundamental kind of capacity around connecting with their babies and toddlers hardwired. So we would want all our toddlers to be holding a baby, and we would be asking, how would you care for a baby? How would you care for baby Jesus? Looking at your baby, you might want to rock your baby. So we'd get all the toddlers rocking their babies together. We might want to sing to a baby. So we might think, what are our favourite songs that our mummies and daddies and carers sing to us? Could we sing a song for our baby? It's really important to look at your baby. This baby's terrifying. Hopefully the babies that they have will be less frightening. But it's really important to look at a baby, because when you look at a baby, your baby looks back at you and they start to learn who you are and they start to learn who they are. So essentially, as we're teaching the gospel, we'll be teaching toddlers what being cared for well looks like, but we'll be teaching parents how you do it all at the same time. And we want to embed all of that stuff into the resourcing that goes into Perfect Peace. We don't want to make it hard work for you, but the vision is a really big, terrifying, frankly, bold vision. We want to resource this unchurched generation of parents with great resources for mental health. And because we believe that the gospel opens up that space for us to be known, to be held, to be loved, that we're wonderfully made, that we're known and held secure by God. We want to be bold enough for the church to be on the front foot of saying, this is what good mental health looks like for our babies, for our toddlers, for the next generation. So we really hope that we can put these resources in your hands soon. I've been so privileged to be given this role. I know that all of you are grafting away at the coalface, and here am I with 2 years full time to be able to craft and develop these resources. So we want to get them into your hands as quickly as possible. We're going to pilot in Ipswich from January through to Easter, and then we're going to start looking at what the rollout for this work looks like nationally. So please be praying for us. Please be sending us your ideas. Please get involved. I think we'll send out my email details, so you'll be able to get in touch with me if you'd like to go on a mailing list to know more about how Perfect Peace is developing. And we're just so grateful for your support as we're on this huge learning journey. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Sophie. And thank you for kind of giving us an insight of where Perfect Peace has come from, the journey it's been on, where it's going, and kind of exciting us with the opportunity to get involved. Having led a toddler group for nearly 12 years, it's funny, I don't just say 11, it's like nearly 12. It's a bit like, you know, a child saying, I'm nearly 4. The fact that you are going to produce all these resources that will take the kind of heavy lifting out of it and blend together kind of what we do in toddler groups in terms of stories and songs with that well-being relational piece just sounds amazing. And yes, we will be sharing details later on, so that if you're interested as the project rolls out, you can get involved, because I know that Joy will be looking for people to take this on and try it out around the country. Okay, I'm going to introduce our next speaker this morning. We've had a kind of big idea, this kind of project that's coming. It's going to start locally and then be rolled out. We're now going to come kind of right back to kind of ground level and to toddler groups. We always tell you that you are our best resource, and that we love to hear your stories of what you are doing as toddler group leaders around the country. And we've got one for you this morning. And this is one that I'm particularly excited about, okay, because it ticks lots of our boxes. See if you can guess from the way I introduce him this morning. So this is a church leader, okay, who also leads his toddler group and has been doing so for a little while. So we've got Mark from Portishead with us this morning. And Mark, you're going to share a little bit about your context and your group, and then you're going to delve into what you do at Christmas to share the Christmas story, the gospel message with your young families. Over to you, Mark.
No pressure there then, Sammy, but thank you for that. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. Good morning, everybody. It's really, really lovely to be with you guys this morning. I say I'm Mark. I'm an ordained pioneer minister, currently working as part of a team ministry in Portishead, which is just outside Bristol. And I have to say already, some of the ideas I've heard, there's plenty of stuff that I'm going to steal from this conversation. Nothing that I'm going to share. It's really not particularly, it's not radical. I've heard some wonderful ideas that have helped me reflect already on some of the things that we do. And also what's really exciting is looking at some of the research we looked at earlier. Actually, so much of what I'm going to share really chimes with some of that. So that's really exciting. As a pioneer minister, one of the key parts of my ministry is a real desire to find ways of connecting with people and of building Christian community among people who probably find more time-honoured church quite inaccessible. And I'm sure, as we know, that's for a great many reasons. And one of the best ways that we do this at Portishead Church of England, and indeed one of my favourite times of the week, is running our toddler group. So in Portishead, we run a toddler group which is called Refresh. I know there's a book out called Refresh, which gives us ideas about bringing faith into toddler groups. I'm not sure if we stole the name from that, but that's the name. That's the name we're going with. And this started just after lockdown. So we had in fact, yeah, there's our flight. Well, there's a picture of some people enjoying Refresh. It started just after lockdown. Fran, our children and families work, who's not with the church anymore, but she started a group, just a way of trying to provide space for families with younger children, that chance to spend time together, to reconnect following that time of isolation. And of course, as we move forward, what we discovered was parents, grandparents, carers, and the children they'd come with, they enjoyed it. They wanted to carry on doing that, and so that group has just continued. And indeed, you might have seen one of the pictures there of some of our families who come along to Refresh. So we meet every Tuesday morning during term time in St Peter's Church in Portishead. We meet from about 9 o'clock to about 11 o'clock, so that some older siblings can be dropped off at school. Parents can come straight from school, or people can just drop in at any time that works for them in the morning. Now, we're lucky in our church. We don't have pews. It's a really adaptable space. So for running, we don't have a church hall. So having the church as a really adaptable space is really good. We serve free tea, coffee and cake. We've got a wonderful team of volunteers who do that and just help create a really hospitable space for people. Sometimes we have 20 families who might be there on a Tuesday morning. Sometimes we might have 2 or 3 families that come along. It all depends. And I want to start by saying that I'm always really reluctant to talk about numbers, because I think they're always just one way of measuring the success of something. It can be so easy to hear of toddler groups that have got loads of children and families, where we're thinking we just have a handful of families. Numbers are one way of reflecting on what we do. And I know sometimes at our group, when there's been less families, there's been the best conversations and the deepest conversations, because there's just space for that to happen. And that's really, really important for what we want Refresh to be. I always say that if Refresh was a stick of rock and, we cut it down the middle, what would flow throughout it would be relationships and connections. So I say some of the deepest relationships we have with families in the church are people who those relationships began because they came to the toddler group. And it was wonderful to hear, Rachel draw attention to Cara's story earlier, and we can see that those relationships that are made at toddler groups are something really, really special. And we have the privilege, therefore, of journeying with people over years, through sometimes multiple children, even across generations. And I'm sure this resonates with some of your experiences. We get loads of grandparents who come along. In fact, the majority, I would say at the moment, of people who come to Refresh are grandparents. And we found that with that depth of relationship, it comes a real authenticity and a growing trust as people obviously come along more. I think, we have certain stories that stick in our minds that just remind you why you do what you do. I remember one conversation I had with a mum who came to Refresh. And I think sometimes, and you do hear this, Portishead sometimes is one of those towns that has a bit of a veneer. We like to put on that face of I'm doing okay, life, I'm doing well at life. But of course, we know behind that, as for us, I'm a parent. We all struggle with so many things and wrestle with things. Life is not always easy. And one parent said to me, I love Refresh because here I can be honest about how I'm doing, about what's going on in my life. I don't feel I have to kind of pretend. And that was so encouraging to hear, that something about what we do created that kind of safe environment for people to be honest, and to share, to be heard, and to be valued. And as I say, it just made my heart sort of sing that we have a space where people can feel they can be authentic and actually safe enough to be vulnerable, which can be really important. And I think when you build those kinds of deep, long relationships, we often find that then people are far more likely to get involved with other stuff. I do want to say from the start, actually, we don't do, apart from me being a vicar and being in a collar and it being in a church, which does create actually a lot of opportunities, a lot of really interesting conversations, we actually don't do any explicit faith content. We don't sing songs, we don't tell Bible stories, we don't do crafts within the toddler group. But having said, when I'm a part of these conversations, there's always ideas in my mind thinking, there is stuff that maybe we could do, and I'll certainly be thinking about that when we leave this conversation. But I say, for us, it's about those relationships, and it's about connecting with each other, and also then seeing, where are therefore the opportunities for people to have a deeper connection with the wider church community. So we do loads of other stuff that we intentionally invite some of those families to. So we do on a messy church that we meets once a month. My colleagues, Lindsay and Tonya, have recently started something that's called the 9:45 special, that one Sunday a month is a real it's a very child-focused service. In fact, it's more affectionately known as the toast service, because there's tea and toast served before we begin. But it's a really, really easy invite for some of the families through the toddler group to then start getting involved in some of the stuff that's going on in the wider church community. And of course, we do loads of seasonal events, from pancake parties to Easter fun days, and of course, Christmas, which is what we're thinking about today. And it's always so important to remember, isn't it, that the rhythms and the seasons of the year provide such wonderful opportunities to help children, young people and families connect with faith. And as we've already heard, Christmas is just one of those times. Christmas is one of those times where people are just particularly open to getting involved with church. And as I say, aside from playing Christmas music at the toddler group that meets up to Christmas, we don't do specific stuff at the toddler group. I think there is something at the moment where we feel there's a sense of there's an integrity to what we do. And I think suddenly introducing faith stuff might not be the most appropriate thing in the group itself, but we're very intentional about about opportunities for people in the wider life of the church, which is really important. As I say, it's that sense of, I've said it's about relationships, about connection. And now we're starting to think about the connections with the Christmas story and where the opportunities for that might be. As I say, we've got this new service that's been going for just over a year now, called the 9:45 special. We've always done nativity services at the church, and but it's tended to be more people who would normally go to church who would come along to it. Since this new service has started, and it's been a much more of a place we can intentionally invite people from the toddler group, we make a really big thing about the fact it's a nativity service, costumes, all of that stuff, inviting people to come and be a part of it. And last Christmas, when we did this, we had 66 children turn up with their families. Now, for us, that's massive to have 66 children in one of our services on a Sunday morning. As I say, what's not making it all about numbers? And it was so wonderful to have just a buzzing service, and the church was just packed, and it was beautifully and wholly chaotic. So many of the families who came were those families we've built relationships up over the years. So there was a sense of this wasn't just people coming for this nativity service, then we won't see them for another year. There was a real sense of what was going on there was building on these relationships, helping us deepen the relationships, and allowing those families to become part of and become a bit more of a part of the church community, and for some of those church families to start connecting with some of those families that maybe wouldn't find church so accessible. One of the things I stole this idea from somewhere called the Hazelnut Farm community, which I believe is in Bristol. But they put out a few years ago something called I think they called it a campfire Christingle. We certainly call it a campfire Christingle, and I'll show you the flyer that we put out for that there, that Becky's just putting up there. And again, this is for a lot of particularly and intentionally for some of those families who come to the toddler group. And I should say, we also run a dad's group that meets once a month, and trying to provide these spaces for those families to get involved in stuff around Christmas. So yeah, we run a campfire Christingle. I say we stole the idea and we've adapted it over the past few years. We set up the church in a very similar way to how we might do for a refresh session. So there's toys and activities, but we tend to serve obviously sort of mulled wine and mince pies and that kind of thing. And so there is that time for people to come in, there's space for people to chat, children to play, again, building those relationships and connections. And then when it's dark enough, we head outside, we gather around a fire pit, we tell the Christmas story, we sing well-known Christmas carols. And as you might have just seen from the picture there, instead of lighting candles, because we do also run a more traditional Christingle service, but we light sparklers. And it is just a really, really beautiful moment. And there is a real sense of awe and wonder as we sing these songs in that moment, and when we pass the flame of the sparkler around the groups. And we try and buy big enough sparklers that they don't run out too quickly. But it is such a joyful evening that tends to connect with, again, a lot, making it really accessible for families who wouldn't normally come to church, but also there are church families there, and just building those links with different families is really key. I think I saw somebody mention in the chat there something about knitted nativity characters. We send round something that's called a posada. I'm not sure if how many people are familiar with that, but we send a knitted set of Mary and Joseph and a donkey. They go round to stay at a different house from the 1st of December until Christmas night. In fact, we call it Mary and Joseph's kind of bed and breakfast. People are invited if they want host the Holy Family in for one night in that time, leading up to Christmas, and it's wonderful. People love it. It's so exciting. In fact, one year I think we had 3 sets going around because there were that many people who wanted to be a part of it. And so we send around the characters. We also put stuff for people, accessible versions of the Christmas story in the box. We put around little kind of, I put together a booklet of Christmas like faith practices, accessible practices for families to do, which they could just have a look at and do really, really simply if that's what they want to do. We create a WhatsApp group for those involved, so they can take pictures of what Mary and Joseph are doing and send it around the group. And Mary and Joseph have done over the years, have done everything from going Christmas shopping to decorating Christmas trees to snuggling down with a family to watch the Muppet Christmas Carol. And I say it really nurtures that sense of relationship, of connecting with the story, connecting with each other, connecting with Jesus, and counting down to Christmas in hopefully a fun and a joyful way. And I know that one of the things that we're trying to be more intentional about now is recognizing the importance of the household and of faith practices and faith talk within the household, rather than thinking we as a church will do this for you, so come to what we do. We're always trying to think, actually, the majority of stuff that's going to happen is going to happen within the household, and how important faith stuff is to people coming to faith or growing in faith. And so we're trying to be more intentional in terms of how we can resource families to do that in their households together. So that's really exciting. The final thing I want to share with you, and this is kind of nothing to do with me, but when I arrived in Portishead around 7 years ago, I discovered that we ran something at the church called Star Trail. I don't know if Becky could show the picture, the final picture that I'd put up. Star Trail and is I'll show you the picture. It's a journey. So that's inside our church building. It's a journey where people are invited to come in and they follow the journey of the wise men. And there's a load of different there's loads of gazebos and stations set up. And what we normally have is we'd have schools that come around. They'd send a Key Stage 2 class and they'd go around in groups of 5. And at each station, there's a different character telling a different part of the story and helping them engage with it. And then they end up, as you can see there, at the manger where they meet the Holy Family. And I have to say, when I arrived and heard that they did an Easter trail, I thought, oh, that's lovely. That'd be really exciting to see. I went into our church after they'd set it up and was just amazed. We're really blessed to have some very creative people. And of course, it's grown over time. But we, it's just the most amazing, immersive, awe-inspiring experience. And so we have every school, there's 5 primary schools in Portishead, and they all send a class round to come round it. We also have open sessions, and we find that a lot of the families from the toddler groups and so people we know that will come and go round this. And of course, that just creates just more space for those conversations to happen. Again, it's so wonderful that the schools come round, and I think we're trying to be again a bit more intentional about how we connect up with schools in Portishead. And some of you may have seen the sphere of that nexus of church, school, and household working together to help people nurture and develop spirituality and faith. And so we're trying to be a lot more intentional about that. And Star Trail, though I think I've seen a few people highlighting ideas. Our Star Trail is an amazing thing, and we're blessed to have people able to put it together. Equally, there's so many much simpler ways you can do those sorts of trails, but they can be equally as engaging and adaptable to people's contexts. I just want to finish by saying. And it's so encouraged. I've been so encouraged hearing stories today. It's always that reminder, isn't it, that toddler groups are not peripheral to what we do as churches, but they're such a vital part of how we can join in with what God is doing and what God is doing in our contexts. And maybe the more we can intentionally connect our toddler groups with the life of the church, the better. And as you guys have been talking, I just wrote something down that's that really challenged me, and has really inspired me this morning, that the way that toddler groups help people become part of a community, and particularly as we think about Christmas, there's a sense in which it's not just a story that people hear once a year, but toddler groups and all the stuff that goes on around that are a way that help people see that this is a story that people believe and that people live, and that they can become a part of that. And thank you for helping me think about some more stuff this morning, and look forward to hearing some more ideas. And thank you for giving me this time to share.
Thank you, Mark, so much for sharing about yourself and your group, which does very much follow the Renew Wellbeing, the Refresh and Renew approach that Caroline talked to us about. I think she was at Talking Toddlers with us in June 2023. So that's why you do that very specific approach, and you signpost the things that you're doing. I particularly loved your campfire Christingle. It looked beautiful. That very much kind of speaks to my soul. So thank you, everybody, for putting so many amazing ideas in the chat. Please continue to put them there. When we do Talking Toddler sessions, it's always a balance of time, input, and time for you to talk and process. Instead of moving on into another breakout room now, we're going to move into an advert break. But whilst we go into an advert break, can I ask you to do two things that will kind of hopefully give you that processing time? So the first one is, if you've got any questions for Joy, Sophie or Mark, please pop them in the chat, because after our advert break, we're going to have 5 minutes of Q&A. And then secondly, what are your takeaways so far from this session? You've got brilliant ideas in the chat, and we will kind of collate all those and send them out. But, you know, where are you landing? Mark is saying there that it's something about the importance of relationships and that connecting, you know, but where is this landing for you? So where is it landing? And then any questions that you've got. So we have got 2 Christmas adverts for you. We might not have the John Lewis advert that will be out, I think, 3 weeks tomorrow. Golly, is it that time of year already? We might not have Kevin the Carrot. I do like Kevin the Carrot, all the adverts. But we do have Steph with her book, and we have Lizzie with her Advent and Christmas resource that I think it was Liz. No, it wasn't Liz. It was, but somebody in my very first breakout room was like, oh, we used it last year. It was brilliant. So Steph, okay, you've got a few minutes. Tell us about your new Christmas book. Some people have used last year's book. Tell us about this year's book, what it is, how we can get it, what resources come with it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sammy. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to really whiz through this. Please excuse my voice. I'm very scratchy at the moment. So I wrote the new Toddler Christmas story for little ones this year so that grown-ups and little ones can enjoy it together. I firmly believe that one of the most important ways that little children can better understand the meaning of God's huge love for them is to spend time playing with him, just like they would with any parent or carer or friend. So me thinking this is all kind of written into the story. There's lots of ways to play and engage with the new Toddler Christmas story from the Bible Society. It's called Are we there? Is it? Yeah. It's called Who Can It Be? A Christmas Wait and See. And there are stars to count like last year. There's a little mouse hiding in every page. There are animals that you can spot and make their sounds. There's different colours on the doors that children can look at and go through and name. And you can get involved with the story with lots of actions and sound effects. There's also a free resource pack from the Bible Society website, and you will find a really short interactive prayer, a link to a really simple toddler Christmas song, which you can practice over the run up to Christmas, and then maybe invite your families and little ones into one of your Christmas services to actually perform the song. And that will just encourage families to come along and just see and feel that actually church is just lovely, normal family community life, and it's just fantastic. Then we've got hats and things to make for in toddler groups, so character hats to make. The story is broken down into 3 parts over 3 weeks. But if you've got really little ones, don't be frightened to adapt it and break it down even more. I've done the stories, the Christmas story, over 6 weeks before, over the run up to Christmas. And we've just done an introduction to the character and read a little bit each week. And it just takes the children and families along on the Christmas journey. And we finish with a like a pop-up nativity with the story, and then we give the story booklet out to all the children and families to finish as well, and invite them to everything that we're doing at church over the Christmas period as well. Open invitation always, all about relationships and community and loving, and just sharing it with. It's a fantastic opportunity to share it with children and families. So thank you so much, Sammy, for asking me.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for kind of risking your voice. There's a lot of love for you in the chat. People used your book last year. Some people have got it in their Playtime conference bags. And I'm loving that there's that separate downloadable resource of all the activities this year and the way you've thought about breaking it down into those short toddler-friendly snippets over the weeks. Okay, now I'm hoping that Lizzie will pop up on screen. Okay, Lizzie, your Come Along Christmas, you've developed this over a few years as well. Tell us how we can get it and what it involves this year.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sammy, for inviting us to come and join you. Hi, my name is Lizzie. I work at Faith in Kids. Today, I'd love to share with you our free resources that are available for you to download at your toddler groups and church events this Christmas. Come Along Christmas is a resource we created last year, primarily for toddler groups and children under 5. It is based on a toddler sticker advent calendar, which we have here. I'll quickly open up. You can see the insides with lots of lovely, colourful stickers to go alongside it. This calendar is a great giveaway for toddler groups. It's fun and helps young children engage well with the Christmas story. On our Come Along Christmas homepage, you can see the link here. You will find all these other free resources that you can use at home. There's as you can see, there's a short film that you can use in your toddler group or at church, and has all our wonderful Come Along Christmas characters. There are colour pictures to help you tell the story. There are colouring sheets you can give out to kids and toddlers to colour in. There's also an all-age talk that can be used at a children's carol service, as well as podcasts for the whole family to listen to at home together, and also some family devotionals that can be used in Advent. But I'd like to tell you a little bit more about what we can be using actually in our toddler groups. So in our Advent calendar, when you open it up, you'll see there's a QR code. This QR code points to a family activity pack, which you can see here, which has a selection of games, activities, crafts, things to watch, so that families can engage a little bit more with the Christmas story at home. And you can include it and link to it in your toddler groups and say, oh, what have you done this week? Oh, brilliant! Come and bring in the craft that you had to go at home doing. It's a great way to interact with home life and toddler life, and just to really include the story, the Christmas story, getting it into homes as well as not just toddler groups. And finally, we have got our 3 Come Along Christmas toddler sessions that are free to download from our website that you can use in the last 3 weeks in the run up to Christmas. Each session includes an idea of how you can tell the story. Some yummy food to make, because we all know that toddlers love a snack, as well as craft, dress up, photo time, because again, toddlers love to have their photo taken. They want it all to be about them, and also a song that you can build on each week as you tell the Christmas story. So these sessions are here to help you to have fun and get excited together to celebrate Christmas. It's a pick and choose, adapt, use these ideas that would best suit you and your toddler group. And enjoy celebrating the good news of Jesus together in your community. So if anyone wants to have any more information about Come Along Christmas, please do look us up on our website, and you can buy the Advent calendar from the Good Book Company. There are lots that you can purchase from them, and there's multi-buy discounts at the moment. So do go and have a look.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lizzie. All Lizzie's details will be sent out to you. I'm going to hand over, I hope, to Rachel, because we've got 5 minutes now of Q&A. Do remember to put some questions in the chat. Otherwise, you're going to get whatever comes into our heads.
Oh, there's lots already in there. Thanks, Sammy. But please do put your questions in the chat. We have got a few minutes, as Sammy said, just for some quick fire Q&A with our wonderful speakers. And I don't know about you, but my head is genuinely full of loads of questions that if we had at least another 40 minutes, I know we could fill it. But first of all, just say massive thanks to Sophie, to Joy, to Mark. We so value you, your encouragement, all that you're doing, your reflections, the projects and so on. So quick fire questions, if that's okay, in the interest of time. Sophie, I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. As I said right at the beginning, I was captivated hearing of you talking about perfect peace, and it's been so good to hear from you and from Joy about the development of this journey and all that is still to come. So we're going to watch this space into next year. But my question for you, Sophie, was when you first described it to me, what I loved was, as you said today as well, the idea that at the end of a session, when you ask people to, you ask the children to come and lie down on the floor to have this moment, which sounds blissful to me, of this perfect peace, the tonic in the middle of a busy day, just after a busy session. You said that the adults also lie down too, which I found was hilarious, but isn't that interesting? Yeah. What captivated me particularly, I keep using that word because it hooked me thinking, what an amazing opportunity in that moment of peace for us to, as you do, whether it's Bible verses, whether it's a poem, whether it's a story, to speak over these people who are in your context, sparkly lights and all at Christmas or indeed over the year. What I wanted to ask you was, do you foster an environment with the team that prays particularly, not just for the session, but for that moment? Because it strikes me that in that moment, we could really hear and see of God powerfully at work, just ministering to people in the quiet. How do you find that with your team? Do you gear them up for that moment in particular? How does prayer play a part in the preparation for that perfect peace moment?
Yeah, so I mean, you can imagine what's peaceful about a toddler group, I don't know, but it is, yeah, we pray before and we pray afterwards, and I think there's an openness to the Spirit in a way in which I think you kind of expect them not to be quiet, and sometimes they're not quiet and sometimes they do run around, but in the days and the moments when they are, you don't really need to say too much. There's not really it's not like a prayer ministry where you need to have had like formal training. You need to, really just waiting on God and let God do the things that God does. And I think that we might, I mean, maybe it's very ambitious, but I think that we might see a shift in the kind of where we see children dropping away from church in the teen years. I think we might see a shift in that if they've got that kind of integral prayer within themselves from an early age. I think we might, I don't know, I hope we might see them holding on. And we do pray for them. I missed out, but we do try to pray for them by name as we go round. And there's a real it's kind of tangible kind of unlocking seems to happen when you pray for people by name, and it's a challenge, and it's difficult, and we do say if we've not said anyone's name correctly, God knows your name, if we missed anyone. Yeah, so the prayer is really important.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I imagine that even actually sometimes when it's not that overt in terms of our praying, actually for team to be praying even silently around their children. Mark, you were speaking, weren't you, earlier about, sometimes we use the opportunities to be, whether it's prayer or Bible stories, sometimes it's all about relationship and we're not quite as sort of direct, but actually that kind of praying over people in that space. Yeah, I thought that was really powerful to create that moment of peace that is quite countercultural, isn't it? Especially for parents or carers with little toddlers around as well. So thank you for sharing that. Joy, I wonder if I could come to you briefly next to just ask you said what I loved hearing was about the development of this programme that, again, all of our toddler group leaders, friends, ministers will be able to tap into in the fullness of time. You mentioned about it being a potential vehicle, if you like, for really speaking into the mental health and well-being agenda of some of our people. I imagine some of our leaders might be sitting there, have I got to do that as well? This is a big ask, isn't it? What would be your one or two sort of first steps almost, that people don't feel overwhelmed at thinking, what could that look like? But actually, with the responsibility and the privilege that we have of journeying with people, what might be even the one or two things that you'd say would just be helpful in maybe each or different sessions when people have that opportunity to get alongside others?
Yeah, such a great question. And I think I remember being a new mom, and I remember going to toddler groups myself, where one of the things that I was so grateful for was just to have a hot cup of tea put into my hand, have people who knew me, who knew what the experience was like of maybe being sleepless and parenting a small child. When I was learning about child psychotherapy, one of the concepts that most grabbed me was the idea of container contained. So when you have a baby, as a parent, what you are is you're the container for your child's emotional experiences. You know, when you've got a screaming baby, if you intuitively kind of are able to connect with your baby, you might turn them towards you so they're facing you. You might hold them, you might rock them, you might speak to them, you might kiss them. You know, there's all sorts of things that you do as a parent that offers containment. But actually, as a new parent, every new parent's mental health is fragile because you've just had this enormous life-changing experience. And so to go into an environment where you as the container are contained by someone else is a completely restorative, life-changing actually experience. And that's what our toddler groups already do. So we're not talking about rocket science or reinventing anything that doesn't already exist. We're talking about tapping into that wealth of resource that already exists in our communities, and actually really seeing that for good and robust mental health, so much of what is already hardwired into our church communities is actually what people need.
Amazing. Yeah, and what a privilege that is to just be alongside. Thanks for sharing that, Joy. I think that really connects. And just let me briefly come to Mark. Mark, you were saying, and I loved what you said about that person who said, you know, it's in this space that I can truly be honest about how I'm doing. You know, it's almost that container, isn't it, that Joy was just speaking of. Just taking that slightly away from, like you spoke of, again, the power of relationship, that intentionality, the authenticity, the drawing alongside of being a toddler group, but also as the church leader, being, you know, overseeing that wider church context. What would your encouragement be to all of these wonderful toddler group leaders that we have here as well on the journey towards Christmas that we've been looking at? How can we encourage our leaders here to be saying, church, we need your support at Christmas time? You spoke about bridging that gap of having church community alongside toddler group. Again, just one or two top tips. What can our toddler groups be doing to say to the wider church, get involved, support us, pray for these opportunities? How can they best go about that, just briefly?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I mean, I think I always feel sad when it feels like toddler groups are seen as a bit peripheral. And I don't know if that is people's experience. I think that and I think there's something about how can we tell the stories of what's going on there. I think just choosing some of those really key stuff, obviously appropriately, you know, what you can share, because as we've said, and I loved what Joy you just said there, and I was going to write down that actually so much of what people need is what churches do so well already. And there's something about toddler groups where we can say, we'll tell, look at what's going on here. This is massive. Sometimes we see it. They come in, we give them a slice of cake and a cup of coffee, and don't see it for what is actually going on there, which is under the surface, these amazing relationships that are being formed, this stuff around. And I love that stuff that, again, you guys have shared about perfect peace. I really want to share that with our team, because you think that what we're doing here you are not just giving them a cup of coffee. You are feeding into this stuff that could be transformative for somebody. And I think maybe how we just get better at owning that story and telling that story and saying to people, and I think sometimes particularly, it was funny when I met Sammy, a toddler again for the Growing Faith Foundation, which some of you may be familiar with. That was where I met Sammy, and she said, "Oh, come and talk at this," and how maybe it was slightly novel that there was a vicar who leads their toddler group. I don't know if that is the case across the board. And I know I have spoken to people who really try to get their clergy to come to their toddler groups, but there's always something. I know people's diaries are busy, but I think sometimes maybe if you can encourage, if you're there as, say, a youth worker or a volunteer, saying to the leadership team in your church, come along, please prioritize it, because this is worthy of your time to be here.
Yeah.
Important.
That's really helpful, Mark. So 2 things I take from that, just as we draw us to a close, and again say thank you to our speakers. 1, encourage your church leaders that the toddler group is the place to be to come and develop those relationships. And 2, share the stories. I think, as you said there, Mark, share the stories. Why not maybe look to the new year, a 5-minute slot once a month or something, where you share a nugget of a story of what's been happening, not just the crafts and the activities, but the conversations, how you're drawing alongside the journey that people are on. So thank you once again. Thank you, Joy, Mark, Sophie. We are so pleased to have had you with us. Absolute gold that you've shared, and we look forward to continuing the journey with you. So thanks for your time again today. We are going to just take a few more minutes of your time, if that's okay, with a few more resources before we all log off and go into the rest of our day. And the heart behind this is just that, against the backdrop of all that you've already heard, a few other snapshots of a few resources that we hope might be of interest, both from the Evangelical Alliance and from Hope Together. So really quick fire for you as some slides come up onto your screen. We hopefully whet your appetite just earlier, looking at not just the Talking Toddlers research, which is free to download on both EA and Hope Together sites, but also the Talking Jesus research, which really maps the faith landscape across the UK. If you want to know more about that, as you can see on your screen, talkingjesus.org for you, for your teams, for your church leaders, hopefully just shares some of those insights about the nugget is just how open people are to things of faith. So do take a look at that report if that serves you in any way. Next, from EA, we have, again, maybe for your wider church community, an amazing book called Being Human, as well as a small group resource, which helps to equip people like you and me to have confidence, to know how to chat, how to have those big conversations with people about some of the big cultural conversations of our time. If this will help bring confidence to you or to me, then delve into the EA website and check out this book, Being Human. Next, for us as parents, we produced a resource called Time to Talk, which looks specifically at relationships and sex education. Many of us will know, I'm a parent of teenagers now, 2 boys, how important and sometimes how tricky or embarrassing or difficult it is to get into those conversations about the real stuff of relationships and sex education. But this book hopefully helps to guide us through some of that. And I'd just love to flag that we have a webinar on the next slide. It shows coming up on Tuesday, the 12th of November, looking particularly around sexuality. Some of you will have families who've got children, growing children, teenagers. How can we have those better conversations with our children and our young people around sexuality? And a team from us at the EA will be looking into this and the resources that come with it. If that would serve you, your wider community, please do join us for that. And just lastly, we've spoken about how relationships are key. Mark certainly spoke to that. Powerful relationships and friendships, particularly in a backdrop of an epidemic of loneliness for many people. And again, a colleague of mine at the EA has written this book and a small group resource called The Best of Friends, looking at how we can equip ourselves in a church community to really reach in to people's contexts, scenarios, loneliness or otherwise, and be indeed that, the very best of friends journeying with people. So if any of those interest you, do go to eauk.org or check out the website or contact me. Hope they might serve you in some way. Sammy, tell us about Hope.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, Hope have got quite an array of Christmas resources for you. Becky, if I could have our first slide. So this is our resource specifically for under 5s. So we do a range of books called God's Big Story. They tell the big story of the Bible through looking at a particular story using Happy Land toys. So Jesus to the Rescue is our Christmas story. You buy the book and then inside there are QR codes that take you to a free animation, free action song, free toddler group resource and a free all age, could be a church or it could be in a preschool or a school resource. You can also find the animation, the song, the toddler group and the all age worship resource on our website www.hopetogether.org.uk. If you go under resources and look for God's Big Story, they're all there. So it's £1.50 if you buy in bulk. So that's really aimed at under 5s, and I know a lot of toddler groups use it. We can go on to the next slide. We have 2 Lego-based resources for you this year. This is our Lego Christmas Story Trail. It's a set of 6 posters. Each poster is a different character from the Christmas story. If you scan the QR code, the picture on the poster kind of pops out of your phone at you. It's called augmented reality. So this would really suit a messy church or a big event where you are trying to get lots of people to engage with the Christmas story. It would need to be done by families because it needs to be done with somebody with a phone, but they're also available on our website www.hopetogether.org.uk/shop, and these link with our next resource where we've got Lego Christmas cards. They come in packs of 5, and again together they tell the Christmas story because each one focuses on a different character. There's a QR code in the cards where that character tells their bit of the Christmas story. So we did these last year. They were very popular with families, and some people even sent them to their toddler groups. I have our next one. This is more for grown-ups. It's our Hope magazine. I call this a conversation starter. This is what I give to my neighbours and my friends because there are articles from celebrities. You've got the artist Ray on the front cover, Adam Peaty is inside, Anne Hegarty's inside, but there's also real life stories. There's a friend of mine, she lives down the road in Bournemouth, called Joy, who lost her son a few years ago, her son Simon, and her story of finding joy amidst loss. There's some charity articles, there's a quiz. You can win £1,500 worth of vouchers from the entertainer. So the reason there's that broad reach of articles is there's something usually for most people. So you might have a neighbour or a friend that knows you're a Christian that you talk to, and it's something that you can give them. Next one is our gift of Christmas gift book. So this looks at all the traditions that we have around Christmas and where do they come from. It's beautifully illustrated, and again there are bulk discounts, but this comes with free resources. So it's not just buy a book and give it to somebody at the end of your carol service. Actually, it could become your Christmas Eve service, your community outreach service. So there's a free download of how to make it an outreach service or a school assembly or a school RE lesson, and there's a free download of activities and then of the pictures, so using some of the pictures to play various intergenerational activities and games. Next one, only 2 more. If the magazine is kind of the conversation starter, this is the conversation continuer. If you've got friends that are beginning to explore faith, this is free. You just pay postage. It's our equivalent of an advent calendar. So there's something each day to read, think about, make, do. There are quizzes in there. There are links to YouTube sites with films to watch and things to listen to. So that's a daily interactive advent journey, free apart from postage. And the very last one, just thinking beyond Christmas. We thought today about relationships and well-being, and Perfect Peace particularly speaks into that. But Hope have a resource called the Wellbeing Journey that we've had since 2020. We've recognised that as well as adults and youth and secondary schools, there's been a kind of primary schools gap. So after Christmas, we are launching something called Happiness Clubs that meets that primary school age well-being need, but in a more using language that is more tangible and appropriate for young children. So a little bit older than our toddler groups, but it's all there on the website now. It's all free to download and use, including some videos. But we'll be launching it with the Diocese of Peterborough in January. So look out for that, because quite often when it gets to January and resolutions, we kind of start to think about our well-being. So it would work well in that season. Here endeth the notices. Maybe you're missing Kevin the Carrot or the John Lewis advert, but I'm going to hand over to Rachel, who's going to pray as we finish.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Sammy. And hopefully some, if not all of those, encourage and equip you in the season ahead. Let's pray together, shall we, as we just bring our time to a close. Father God, we just thank you for this time we've had together. We thank you for each other, Lord. What an encouragement to see so many gathered that are doing this amazing and valiant work all over the country from the top to the bottom. Holy Spirit, we do just pray, Lord, would you help to simmer in our hearts and minds as we leave this space, the things that actually might captivate us to run with this Christmas time. Help us to know what will work in our context with our wonderful children and adults, parents, carers, grandparents. Lord, would you just help us to come across the right things? And Lord, just encourage us as we go. And we do ask that as we look ahead to this Christmas time, may many, many people, young or old, in our different contexts, just have something of the wonder of Christmas, all that you have done in sending your Son, and may it become real to them this Christmas time, whether that's through a perfect peace moment, through the chaotic noise, through the joy of Christmas. Just bless us as we go, we pray. So we just lift ourselves to you, ask your protection, your favour, and that we'd see many, many people come to know you a bit better this Christmas time. In Jesus' name we ask, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rachel. It just leaves me to say thank you so much for joining this morning. You make it, okay? You are our best resource. We can see that from the ideas in the chat. The ideas in the chat, the links, a recording of this, and all the slides will be sent to everybody who registered. Okay, but we want to see you again. Our next webinar is the 6th of March when we're looking at Easter. To hear about that, the best way of hearing about it is to sign up to our database. We don't bombard you, but it means you hear directly from us and can sign up directly from us rather than finding a link on social media. So everybody who's registered today will receive more about today, but then GDPR, we can't contact you again unless you're part of our community and you register. So there will be a link in the follow-up email to this session. And if you're not already registered, do join the family. And then we'll see you at Easter. Well, we'll see you on March the 6th to talk about Easter. So take care. God bless. May God prepare good things for you to step into in the rest of today. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.